Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to the Wānanga on imagery for base map imagery, and creating 3D fly-throughs. So yeah, I've got some really neat resources for you to have a look at today. And I'm also joined by a couple of colleagues from LINZ. Just shout out to Jeff O'Malley, who's our convener for this series, and for Jonathan Ball, colleague from LINZ, who'll be speaking today, and Carl Baker also be speaking today. And then, so we'll hear from Jonathan, we'll hear from Carl, and then I'm going to close us out with some pretty neat resources and show you some how to build on what you'll see and hear from Jonathan. And the resource I'll share with you will probably take care of your weekend. So if you had any plans, yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll really enjoy it. Anyway, I will. If you have any part-time questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we go. And we should have some time towards the end. Once we've had the main presentations, we'll stop the recording so that we can have a bit more, unrecorded, kōrero and pātai. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Jonathan, and let you get into it, and I'll just go on the chat. Kia ora.
All right, kia ora tātou. E noho ana ki Rameti ki Kapiti. E mahi anu aho tōtutu whenua, ko Ball Burton tōku whānau, ko Jonathan tōku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Hi everyone, thanks for having me here today. My name's Jonathan Ball. I'm the product owner of LINZ Base Maps. You all probably know what a base map is, the thing at the bottom of your web map, the thing you see in Google Maps or Apple Maps or anything like that. But at LINZ, we like to look at them a bit differently. We've got a data collection problem, really. We've got hundreds turning into thousands of layers of data, and our users find it really difficult to engage with that sort of a catalog. So we use base maps as a way of taking that collection and turning it into the easiest way you could possibly engage with it, like simplifying it down to the latest, the greatest, the best resolution, the first place to go to see the best data. So that's kind of the ethos we have at Base Maps. We just try and bring our best data forward and make it as simple as possible to interact with. Right, so today for the demo, I'm going to do that classic dangerous move and do a live demo. I'd encourage you all to open up Base Maps and do the same thing as me if you like. It's a pretty stable product. It certainly won't be worried about having us all using it at the same time. So if you feel like it, head to basemaps.linz.gov.nz. Dwayne, I don't know if you can, but if you throw a link into the chat, that'd be awesome. So this product, it's about doing two things other than making those collections simple to access. It's about serving two types of customers. One, everyday citizens that have a question that can be answered using data. What does my roof look like? What's over that fence? What's that hill's name? That sort of thing. And then helping developers, people that want to build on top of geospatial data. So want a map or a base map inside their app or their map or whatever they're building. So this product does those two things. So if you go to Base Maps, this is what you see. It's your standard web map, and it focuses in on New Zealand. Zoom out, we've got the whole world. Though most of the world doesn't feature in this. It's maybe a nod to that old Maps Without New Zealand collection. This is our map of without every other country. So you can see the world, but you can also zoom in to any level of detail you like. Right, so I'll give you a quick tour of the web mapping aspect of it. You can do a couple of things. You've already seen zooming in and zooming out. That's standard mouse wheel stuff, but we've also got some buttons here. If you click on the right mouse button, you can twist and rotate the map to your heart's content. If you get lost, this little button here, our compass, puts north back up to the top of the screen and flattens things out for you. We also have a little find my location button, which if I click, asks for permission, and it'll find you on our map. And it works. That's my house. Said too much. And this next button is one of our cool new features. It's our 3D map. So it's the same map, but it basically introduces a 3D aspect to it. So right now I'm not in 3D, and if I look at Paraparaumu in the hills, it all looks pretty flat. If I click this on, we have elevation data and everything pops into 3D, and I can see the Tararua Ranges rise up above the hill. All right, so what is next? Down here, you'll see attribution. So this basically, the map we're looking at brings together all sorts of different data sources. This attribution bar is a great way of telling what you're actually looking at. Like right now, we're looking at satellite imagery. But if I zoom in on Kapiti a little bit, we're switching to some urban imagery provided by Kapiti Coast District Council. And we can also see the date that it was captured, which is all useful stuff if you're trying to tell a story with the data. If you see something that's useful in the base map, in this web interface, you can take it in a couple of ways. The simplest is literally just taking this URL. It preserves the location, the height you're at, and the aspect, the sort of 3D angle that you're using the map in. If you copy and paste that and send it to a friend, they will open it up. If they click on it, they'll get exactly the same view as you. Another way would be a screenshot. It doesn't print great, but you can certainly print this page and it will give you a bit of a rough PDF or a rough printout of what you're looking at, which makes it pretty easy to scribble on, things like that. Or, I won't get into this too much, or you can engage with this as an API. So you can take this data set that we're looking at and you can plug it into your map or your app and know that you're always going to get Lindsay's best data sliding into your product. I'm not going to touch on that too much because I think Dwayne's going to get to that in the end. Now I'm going,
that's right.
One other thing that needs to be mentioned is this guy, full screen. If you're trying to tell a story with data and you want your audience to be captivated, entering full screen is always a good move. I don't know what's going to happen if I do it while I'm sharing my screen, so I'm not going to attempt it, but it basically will block everything out. So in here, in this button here, it's kind of hidden, but this is where all of our data and all the cool stuff lies. So if you open this up, you can choose between a range of base maps and imagery layers or data sets that we use to make base maps. So we kind of like, we serve up the cake, the base map, but we've also got all the ingredients in here available as well if you want to see what's made any of the base maps. So if I click on this, these top 5 are our main base maps. And then scrolling down, there's, well, you can see here, there's 472 other data sets. Some of these are just individual areas. Some of them are bigger, but it's worth exploring. You can type straight into here, like Wellington, and the location of your choice or whatever you're typing will filter down the results. Or you can filter by map view. So that hides a heap of layers. Now I've only got 32 in here. So only layers that have coverage in Kapiti, which I'm viewing right now, will show up. I'll turn that off though. I'll tell you a little bit about the aerial imagery base map now, what you'll see in there. When we start off with a global view, you've got GEBCO bathymetry in there and satellite imagery, so a whole picture of New Zealand in one go. As we zoom in, we start to get what we call rural imagery, and that goes, let me turn this off for a sec so I can see the attribution. This is sort of 25 centimeter data, so each pixel represents 25 centimeters out of school ruler. And then as I go a little bit further in, you can see it zoom, see that extra layer popping in there? That's urban imagery appearing. So we don't load those layers until they're useful to the map, so until you'd be able to get some sort of detail out of it. We can go right down to that 10 centimeter sort of level. You'll notice that there's a little bit of extra information on here, street names, numbers. You can really easily make that disappear by turning the labels off like that. I generally find it's quite useful. So that's a brief overview of aerial imagery. Like I said, all of the ingredients of this base map are available. You just got to scroll down or look up a particular area. Next, we've got three topographic maps actually, a vector product, which looks like this, a very fast moving web map. We have a slightly subdued version, and we have our standard New Zealand topographic maps. I'm going to let Carl talk about those later, so I'll skip over those and go on to the quite an interesting data set, which is what made those hills jump out, our elevation data. This is our National Elevation Service. It's a type of data called terrain RGB. So it basically visualizes elevation using RGB colors, red, green, and blue. And it's pretty psychedelic. Like it's quite a strange layer when you look at it in its raw format. So this is all, you can kind of see it if you tilt it, but basically all these bands just represent a height, and it makes our map pop out to show off that value. You can do heaps of cool stuff with it. If you're pretty techie, you can make contours on the fly, slope aspect maps, all sorts of flash stuff, but I'm not going to get into that today because I don't really know how to do it. Carl's going to show this off in a little bit more detail though, because the cool thing about this layer is it's got a 1 meter resolution, which is way more detailed than we're used to seeing New Zealand 3D data in. Like, you can see every farm track in New Zealand that we've got coverage of. It's really, really amazing detail. I'm quickly just going to touch on two other layers, and then I'm going to hand over to Carl. First of all is these scanned aerial imagery base maps. I click to these. So these were all scanned by MPI, and we offered to turn them into base map services. So this is all aerial imagery from the Crown Archive, scanned in pre-January the 1st, 1990. And there's an alternate layer, which is post 31st of December 1989. I'm told this date is very important because it's related to the Kyoto Protocol and when carbon credits can be attributed to forests. Like, was it planted before or after this date? But there's a stack of other really cool stories in this data. A lot of history in there, and it's really fun to explore. So I encourage you to go have a look around here.
Jonathan, quick question for you. So I'll be going into sharing a number of places towards the end of our hui, but do you know approximately what year range pre-1990? Is that kind of late 80s or whatever was best available throughout kind of the 79 to 80?
Mm-hmm. How about I try and ask that question from someone that will have the answer while Carl's presenting, and then I'll answer it better at the end.
Thank you.
So, as you can see, it's a cool, kind of beautiful historic layer, and it's 3D if you want it to be. So it's a really interesting way of viewing all of this historic data in a quite a modern way. We also publish imagery that we collect from events, normally negative events like flooding or cyclones. If I search up Bowler, we can look at imagery taken directly after Cyclone Bowler. Again, all in 3D. And we can see the damage that it caused. We also have obviously lots of Gabriella image in here. I'm a terrible speller. Gabriella, this is an amazing data set in the Hawke's Bay, just showing the damage that was caused. A lot of you will have seen this layer already, but the flooding and the serious amount of erosion and landslips that occurred after that event. So all of that data is here, available for use. Anyone can use it. You don't need to log in. You can take API keys away without logging in or signing up. So if you want to build a product, I suggest you register your API key by emailing us down here. Yeah, all this data is open, freely available, and owned by the public. So make best use of it in any way that you can. Cool. I think this is the point where I probably should hand over to Carl, unless you got any questions that are best slotted in right now, Dwayne?
No, that's great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Nice.
Kia ora, ko Paurua te maunga, ko Waitangi te awa, ko Titi o Waitangi te marae. The last ko Kao Takuinga, ko Baker Takuinga whānau. It's kind of weird looking at yourself and then sharing the screen, but let's go. So talking now about Topo 50 maps data and what's in the base maps relating to that. So we're starting off zooming in here in one of my favorite places that I've never been to, Lake Waikato Moana. And when you zoom into the base maps, you'll see the 1 to 250,000 series of maps, which is a series that you use that covers a greater area. Then you zoom into a 1 to 50,000 map. And one of the key points of what a topographic map is, it's a summary of what's on the land. So when there's lots of features on the land, we show certain features and we drop other things off. When there's not much, we actually chuck quite a bit on. As we zoom into Lake Waikato Moana, we go from that 250K to 50. A good gauge on this is that if you're looking at a raster map, so this is a map that's been made, that's been scanned, that we stitch them all together as one. There was a comment around how often are they updated, so I'll precursor that with not often enough really, But when we update it by a sheet extent. So all around the country, you'll have different dates of updating. We explain that information and metadata and that type of thing. Lake Waikaremoana, because this is a place where, like, these maps are 99% multi-names, which is a good thing from my point of view. And we also have this really weird thing where Lake Waikaremoana label actually appears in the water. That's because there's a sheet line that you can just see running down the edge of the page. And topo maps are really good for looking straight down on things. And Defence Force have this great phrase of time to target. So when their planes are flying over, they want to be able to measure where the target is, where to land. So it's really that top-down view, because as people, we understand that view. Within the view, we have contours, and this area here is an event that happened around 2,000 years ago, which is another quite a cool thing to see. So I'll flick through screens, because when I was switching before, sometimes the 3D comes on, you got to reset it and that type of thing, and it doesn't. So when we switch our map to the 3D view and using our right mouse button just to spin around, yeah, we see this 2,000-year-old landslide actually with the contours of where it came from and where it ended up, and this is why Lake Waikaremoana was formed. But there's also these cliffs on the south side of the lake where the Great Walk goes around. So it really gives you a better understanding of what you're actually going to encounter when you go into these areas. And that's with a map draped over our 3D model. We can obviously drape the imagery. That view, angled view of 2D, is actually quite a useful thing as well, because you can see off into the distance of where things are. So settlements, I don't know how clear the screen is, but there's buildings there. We have beacons in the water. When you switch that view to 3D, obviously you get that hill that's right in front of you. So if you're making maps where you want a plane view of something and you want to see, you know, more into the distance, 2.5D is actually quite a good thing as well. But you know, what we want to point out, and Jonathan's already said it, is that these maps, and I'll just stop there because I've realized that you're now looking at the vector tile-based map, which is from the vectors that make up the Topo 50 map. So it's the same data, but in a different format. So here you see a single river centerline running up here, but you can actually see from the hill, and you can see from the mountainside, there are many, many rivers there. And those are the types of things that I feel are important. And we're at this point in time where we never had this really brilliant LiDAR before, so we could never capture these features. We're at a point now where we can capture them, but we just don't have enough people to do it. And again, trying to explain that landslide with the image behind it. And here we have the hybrid map. So in our hybrid map, we take aerial imagery, we throw on it tracks, roads, and a few features, and that just gives you a again, better understanding of what's actually on the ground, what we're looking at. If you wanted to go up that track, you can get a really good feeling of where you're actually going to be going. And deciding that maybe that's not the track for you. Maybe you just want to go on the flat track around here. So there's kind of three parts to my talk. I'll jump into a bit of a cartographic thing now. I hope you find it interesting. It's pretty colors. I think it's pretty cool. So this is an old map from 1942, which is actually a plan. So when we used to capture maps, we've been doing maps since the 1930s in this series. We used to do field checking. And so this is a plan that's actually been drawn up, Urapukapuka Islands and the Bay of Islands, where it was sketched up where the islands were, the place names were put on it. There was questions around which spelling we should be using. It was checked by certain people, which we record here, and then there are penciled notes that have been added. So this information here is what our current maps are based on, and that's why I kind of wanted to show that Waikaremoana, that when we put our data onto the maps now, you know, it lasts for a very long time, and it's a very, very important document, and we need to get it right. Having this type of information of the provenance of why things are there is important. It's something that we can do these days, but we just don't have that connection to people who care about the data for for certain features. Certainly around GeoBoard, they do, and that's why we take all our, or a lot of our names from all the names that are in the GeoBoard Gazetteer are put onto our maps, but there are certain other features that we look after ourselves. And this is where I'll quickly go into, this is an old geographic board scan of a plan for, obviously, Waikato Moana, which is pretty cool by itself, right? And people like looking at this kind of stuff. But what I tried to do in a little training exercise for myself was to take in the base maps 3D, put it underneath the map and blend it in. And this is why you see these colors everywhere. Crop off all the other stuff that wasn't really good. Come up, use different colors just that I liked, and this is really easy to do, and this is just kind of encouraging people to do this combination in areas that you want to do. But it's got this horrible line through the middle, which took me a little bit of time to get rid of, but I ended up with this product, right? And this is the joy of having open data that, you know, we can bring things together, present things in a different way, so we can connect to places. The problem with this map is that I would never ever sell this map, right? Because it's not my data, and you know, it's just, I've done something for myself as to inspire other people what to do. But when we make our data open, there's that real question of ownership and data. And that was just this is taking old maps using new data and then producing something with technology. The obvious mistake at the top here is that the old map obviously showed the lake where it doesn't go because we show it as a hill. So what I'm hot on is multi-data sovereignty, and I'm so excited about it, but we don't do too much about it. But it ticks these boxes around this data of how we've collected data, made maps in the past, and how we should be doing it in the future, right? So we talk about a data infrastructure, how we collect stuff, the protection of the data, the sharing, the use and the reuse, and, you know, quality and system integrity, right? And on this side here, it says, you know, this report identifies a need for strategic investment because you want to collect data outside of the public sector systems, right? That kind of breaks my heart a bit, but it's also true, right? So when we show our maps, we show basic information on things, right? And what we show is being very Pākehā driven in the past. And we're at a point now, because we're moving into what we're calling our future topo maps, is that we can actually redesign how we think, what data we use, how we bring maps together, and actually what we show on the maps, which is an exciting time. And an example I'll give here is around marae locations. So when I was a survey drafting cadet back in the 80s, it was never talked about to map marae, iwi boundaries, anything like that, because it wasn't our business and we stayed out of it. Now I'm seeing more and more of these features and things coming through in the services that councils are providing and other people providing. So when you go into the Kohu Pātiki marae, you know, you can go on the site, and I can't remember if it's this one or the next one, but I click on it and I get Whananui and Wharikawa, right? And that's cool, except I don't know which building is which, right? That's just telling me that those things are there. And it's really that collecting that information around which building is which. And also the fact that, you know, we show that marae point in the Urupa, and it's kind of not quite right? We don't want to be showing those features connected. It's the marae, it's the greater complex area, but we're kind of drawn by this. We need to show it as a point, and we also need to show it as an address. And those kind of connections need to be broken. And this is where our data structures and what we design needs to be influenced in a different way. So back to a Topo 50 map for that same area. So this is, I love this stuff, right? So you've got a mast point there. You've got greenhouses up the road. We've got large bridges that are named. We've got substations, and we've got two marae. So Matahiwi marae down here, and our Kohu Pātiki marae up here with no label, right? So when you actually go and try and find that from our data, you can't, because it's actually stored as descriptive text because it doesn't have a name, which is kind of weird. We can add our buildings, right? But when we show our building, we show all those three buildings all combined together, because when we capture buildings, we try and capture the whole country. We don't have the time to get into the detail of that. We have a geographic name, and if I go back out to the marae, and this is, I'll get told off for showing this, but we do a spatial query on that, and we look at our name, and we classify our marae as pa, and that's just wrong to me. So we we know we're wrong. We're about to change on the things we want to do, and we want the people who use our data to give us feedback around what we're doing here, right? So when we talk about buildings, obviously this is a wharenui from Google, right, from Street View. We don't have the time to go through all these things. So we want people who are connected to these places to tell us what we can show, what they'd like us to show, what they'd like us to remove, and that's got to be done at this level of Marae level, at a higher, I don't know, level of engagement. Whereas things, when we get things wrong on the map, anybody can actually send those things in and tell us to change. And one of the things I'd note here is that this is behind a stop bank, but it's a tiny stop bank, and there's another river down there, and that comes up in a minute, right? So we are changing, and one of our big things that we're doing around our maps is place name changes through the GeoBoard. And so GeoBoard doesn't have governance over marae names. You can name a marae whatever you want. So when we get place name changes, there's lots of other features that we show in our data that we don't actually change, and we would like to actually be changing that. So that's going to be one of our focuses in the future on how we engage. Table 50 maps are important because this is how the government explains to the public what they're doing and what they want to do. And again, Mr. Fussy cartographer here, as our marae point is actually down the road from where the marae is. No big deal to everyone, but kind of noticeable. And this name here is actually so large that we might actually end up showing it on the Topo 50 map, which would be a shame to say and do, but it would be very difficult to show it because we'd have to take something else off. But when we show it in base maps, we can show it because we have all the space that we can do. And in base maps, you can see our marae building. You can see the stop banks that have been built. The shadow on this is kind of a bit slow, but we can't see it. But this is the information that we're going to use in the future that's going to address those things like climate change, right? So we're at a point where we're going to have lots and lots of really good information to do this stuff, but we've still actually got to build that. And we see base maps as a real key way that we deliver that to the public. And also for us to deliver building outlines with no attribution on it whatsoever is a good thing. But those are the discussions that we'd actually like to have around what we should be showing, how we deliver it, and really understanding ownership and sovereignty over that data. So I think it's really exciting times ahead. So I kind of talked about Topo 50 maps and base maps, went quite deep, but it's around how much more information that we can show now, how quickly we can deliver it, how quickly we can change it, and making sure that we're showing important features on our map for what our people want to do today. And that's me.
Kia ora, Carl. Thank you. Hey, that was really great, mate. We got one partai on the chat, if I just read for you. Could you send us a list of the partai you'd like to offer or request of our whānau and marae committees to update what is and isn't shown or listed or described as? So I guess to summarize, what's the easiest way for people to engage or to seek that engagement?
I notice there's a lot of LINZ people on this. In this forum, please send it through to my email at LINZ, and I'll pick it up and take it. And we've really got to, I just want to do some stuff right. We can change these things, and it's really important that people understand that we can change what's wrong. That's the biggest thing. If we are going to change things for certain features, we have to go through groups that need to be informed about these things. We are kind of set up to do it, but it is difficult and takes time. So definitely please send them through to me in the first instance, and we'll assess them and get back to you and discuss that. But we can't map this stuff ourselves, so any help we could get would be great. And my email will be put in the chat.
Cool. What's the best email for? Is there Ricky? Engagement. Oh, yeah. What's your email, Carl? Or what's the best email to send it to? We also have the GrowGIS one as well.
Yeah, K Baker.
Okay, K Baker.
At
linz.govt.nz
or toitutowhenua.govt.nz.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. Okay, so last weekend I went a little bit crazy, and I prepared a very large resource that I'm going to share with you just now. And I think some of you will get quite excited when you see it, and you won't be able to go back to work this afternoon. So, aroha mai, sorry about that. So, building from what Jonathan and Carl shared with you, how do we then take this and make it your own? So what I have done is I've taken some well-known stories off the internet, various sites, and put them together as very simple examples. And I've also included in here some tutorials, links to other examples, other links, a couple of videos. With our Ngā Poutama Matawhenua series, now that we've been going for a couple of years, we have some recordings and videos of how to create a 3D fly through from place to place to place, which I'm going to show you one as well. There are, in addition to the imagery you've seen, there are a number of other layers I think are of interest to Māori, particularly things like retrolens. And some of the councils, as you saw from the LINZ data, have pulled a lot more of the data together into 10-year bands. So I'm going to share with you, if you've got a pen handy, you may want to write this one down. It's very short. I'm just trying to find the chat. Aroha mai, one moment. Oh, it's right here. I'm not even going to put it on the chat. I'm just going to get you to write this down. Haere, hae.re/manu. So if we go to a new tab, I'll just move everybody up there, and I go hae.re/manu, as in, and press enter. You may get a weird message the first time round, but just try it once more. And it's a shortcut to this address here. That will open this up. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. I'll see you next week. So this will keep you occupied for a while. I want to show you one trick. There are a number of stories in here. Some of them are description of applications for imagery. Let's have a look. Applications for kaupapa Māori, different users, different purposes rather. I'm just going to make my screen full size. There we go. And as you scroll through the stories, different things will come up, and you can either click them just then as they go by, or you can just kick back and watch the story go. Now, there's one trick I want to just show you, is if you press up here and you go turn autoplay on, you can just sit back and watch the show, and it'll go through the whole story. Well, it's not on mine at the moment, probably because I'm sharing screen. But I've got lots of examples embedded in here that I think will provide you with, some examples of how you can use this imagery. So here, for example, is Port Waikato. You can also zoom out. So these are coming, what I've done is I've taken directly from the LINZ data service, from the Basemaps site, and I've integrated them into the software, the StoryMaps software that I'm using. And in our resources there's also how to create story maps and things. But this is a little picker. You can, if you click something here, the map will change. It's just a bit of a resource on all the different ways that you can use this type of imagery. It has links to places like retrolens, if you've not already seen retrolens. It's the individual photos that you can get a hold of. And when you press these buttons, for example, it comes down into, it's not going particularly quick on my one at the moment, but I'll just turn that away as well. Turn autoplay off, it's not playing. So just back to the main screen. This story map or collection of story maps, there are some examples. So those aerial imagery layers that Jonathan showed you. And there is how to access those imagery, some examples, and just wanted to point out at the moment there's 472 in that site, and I know there's more still coming. There's a bit of information there about how you can use it. There's a pop quiz on this one. If we click on this one, Tēnā Moana. So what I've done is I've prepared these as examples for what you can create using the Story Maps tool. And you can see here, this is pulling in the LINZ base map imagery from the base maps site. Now, depending on what software you want to use, if you want to use QGIS, which is free, then you can use the APIs, and I'll show you a couple of things in just a moment on there. But there's also, it's captured in here, and you can see there's links to the base maps site. So, for example, if we have a look at a couple here. So this gives you a snapshot in time that you can go back and see what the whenua was like. In this case, it's part of the pre-1990s data set. If we have a look at Parihaka. So you can see up the top here, there are some different links as well. If we go, okay, so how do I take one of these maps, these views that I see, and put it into a PowerPoint or a Word document? So Aroha Mai, I'm not sure with Apple users, but I know there'll be some similar tool for Apple users. But with the Windows snipping tool, or if you just look on your Windows menu for Windows snipping tool, you can create, you can capture, screen capture, and then paste it into a PowerPoint. And if you do that in the same manner, say 4 or 5 times, slightly changing the map as you go, you can embed a little bit of animation in that PowerPoint. And that's the most simple way to show or to share with others an animation. So as you go from slide to slide to slide, you get a bit of a turn in the imagery. Let's come back here and see what else is in here. Let's have a look at an example of, just check the time. Don't want us to go over. Okay, let's have a look at an example of how can you use the LINZ base maps with the Story Maps technology, which you can also do for free, to create a 3D fly-through that you can share with others. So in this case, working with iwi hapu groups up and down Whanganui, always quite familiar with things, and managed to go on a helicopter flight, which is where I got this photo. And in here is a link as well to share those photos with anyone else who's after them too. So if I click here, autoplay this fly through, I'll just try, it should be the same here. Here we go. So now I can click here, speed it up or slow it down. But this is an example of an automated 3D fly through. So this probably took maybe an hour to prepare this, to put it together, to collect the story from different locations. And to just have a bit of a play with some of the tools. But this is an example, and I can change any of these as well. You can also have background audio. So if you have a multi-tier that you wanted to play as well, you can do that. And you can see I've got, as you go through, it's going to come down the awa. Going from place to place to place. And then you can share that with others, or you can also keep it private to yourself. Or you can keep it private to a group. This one here I'm going to show you as well. So what I've done is I've added some buttons here where I can zoom to Kirikiriroa Pa, zooms down to it. And then if I wanted, I can also add the topographic layer that Carl just shared with us, which is useful in sometimes identifying, if you're not quite sure where a particular feature is or the name of that place from aerial photo, if the label's not there, sometimes the topographic maps will have some useful labels as well. But of course, you can also, with things like Google Earth, you can overlay historical land block photos of historical land block plans on the whenua as well. Okay, so what I might do is we'll just have a look in here. So there's a couple of examples. There's one about some locations of retrolens. For those of you familiar with Okahu in Tamaki Makaurau, there's a picture from retrolens, for example, which is another site Lindsay's party to supports. Historical aerial images from the 1930s up until about the 1980s, thereabouts. And there's a couple of other stories here, for example, with Cyclone Gabriel, Te Rarawa. I was watching the movie on Dame Whenakupa, and I thought, hey, that would be quite cool to do a story based on that. So I borrowed a story from New Zealand Geographic, I think. And then here's what I wanted to point out as well. Some of you who have been to our other sessions will have seen this marae development plan, which goes through and is unusually based in South America, but I didn't want to borrow anybody's marae. There's an example there for Holden, the Waitara Awa 3D fly-through, and it just goes from place to place to place without any other info. If we have a look at this tutorial, it's just a very basic step-by-step, but there's also a video available as well. So if we have a look through here, we're going to create, this is a preview of the final result of the tutorial. Now this whole process takes a bit longer than what we have time for today. So I'm just sharing with you where you can find this information. So you can create a story, add what's called a sidecar, which gives you the map. Now what I've done is I've prepared a map for you a bit earlier called Whenua Māori 3D. So when you click on that link, and I'll leave this one open so I can share the link on the chat as well. It will open this and it allows you to do a couple of basic overlays, and I might add Māori land as well on there. There we go. Not sure I haven't got Māori land on there. But this is also an example of pulling in data from other locations. So we've got marae coming from Te Puna Kōkiri, who maintain that data set through their channels. Then we have the imagery coming from Toitū Te Whenua and maintaining that imagery. There's also, what else we got here? We've got some ones we can turn on and off, for example. Some layers, some catchment layers, if we wanted to see, for example, seed draining catchments. And even selected maunga, using again the LINZ topographic data set to identify, to help identify where a maunga might be on the whenua. And you can see here, there's a couple there that have come up. And this is the same data that is in the LINZ topographic maps. I'm going to share that link in just a moment. But just to come back here, creating a fly-through, if you add that map, going from place to place to place, and then a couple of links there and the videos as well. Let's see what else we've got here. So you can go through this in your own time at your own pace. There's a couple of videos there, resources, there's an example. I've just labeled them example, or tutorial, for example. If we have a look at Cyclone Gabriel, for example. Te whenua I te karu rangi, mapping changed through satellite imagery. So Toitū Te Whenua captured imagery, 2 or 3 sets of imagery for just after Cyclone Gabriel. There's a bit of kōrero here. And then also, I think Jonathan shared this one, is there's an image layer there for just after Cyclone Bola. So as we scroll down here, what I've got a couple of fix-ups there. Other highlights, a bit of a work in progress too. I'll tidy it up for you, but it's just an example of how you can implement and use, in addition to the Basemap site, how to use some of the APIs, which you don't even need to look at. The tutorial here will tell you how to access that data so that you can create these place-to-place-to-place views. Unfortunately, the one thing the Lens Basemap site doesn't do is allow you to create those animations, but this does, and it allows you to also, as Carl mentioned, in terms of data sovereignty, you can keep it to yourself, you can lock it away, you can control what goes in there, or you can make it available to others, friends and family as well to have a look at. Okay, so just so you've got a taste of what's available in there, just how to use it, click on this button up here and choose the story you want, look for the autoplay if you'd like to, and yeah, that'll keep you occupied for quite a while going through some of those. Definitely recommend having a look at RetroLens if we have a quick squiz in there. Going to stop in a moment and we'll have some time for partai. So Kohu Bay Village, just before it was cleared in the 50s, before Queen came over, Whaingaroa, Parihaka, and other places. So there's quite an overlap between the RetroLens site and what you saw in the pre-1990s link layer from Tautia Whenua as well. A little bit of info there about getting one of those RetroLens layers, photos, and adding it into, say, Google Earth, which is the easiest way if you had a series of layers that you wanted to share or show change over time. And as you go through, there's lots of examples where you can do this kind of swipe. Oops, it's not loaded up yet. But you can swipe between historical and today. I think it's getting there, but it's just taken a moment or two. Here we go. So there's that imagery that you saw Jonathan share. And as you zoom in, as you actually go through the story, it zooms it all automatically for you, picks up a number of places. But here you can see, you can swipe between as the detail comes in, comparing the current data set that Jonathan shared with you to the historical data, the pre-1990 scanned images. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Just the one thing I wanted to share with you again as to how to find that resource is go haere/manu. And there's lots of links in there, links back to the basemaps.lens, how to create that 3D place-to-place-to-place story, links to specific sites that I think are of interest to many whānau around the motu, sort of examples of using those different data sets, just to kind of skip right to the end of how can you use these data sets to share your own stories, and what are the tools that you can use to do that. And as I mentioned, the snipping tool is the simplest way, bringing it into a PowerPoint. So I'm going to stop there and we'll pause for some partai.